Hi, everyone. Pastor Galen, lead pastor at Shine Hills Church. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We hope that these podcasts will be a real encouragement to you on your spiritual journey. You can also connect with Shine Hills at shinehills.org. Hope you enjoy the program.
Across the street and around the world, Shine Hills.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. Nathan, welcome back. I'm pulling you out of committee meetings so you can come in here and give us a report.
I just like hanging out with you, man.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Okay, I know you're in a committee meeting because you're wearing a tie. You don't always wear ties.
Right. Well, I don't. You're right. I only wear, sometimes.
Legislative.
One time someone said, that someone bad had to have invented the tie because no sane man ties a noose around his neck in the mornings.
That's funny. That's good. Well, is this your power tie or is this just
is
this your neutral tie?
This is when I mean business.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you mean business today. Let's go through, our last podcast we talked about some of those bills coming up. Yeah. And I know we're kind of 1 week off here as far as when we're doing this a week ahead when it'll be aired, but still this is up to date as of today. Right. Let's talk about some of those bills that we went through. First of all, the first one is you said some good news here. The HB 92 abortion prohibition Supreme Court decision. Talk about that one.
Yeah, so that's the reason why I'm actually dressed up in this monkey suit today.
Okay.
Just this morning, it went through its third reading in the second house. So it started off in the House of Representatives, and then it just went to the Senate, and it passed its third reading today.
Okay.
And it was a very positive vote. It was 24 to 5 to 1. Okay. And so 24 voted for it. 5 voted against it. 1 was not on the floor at the time. Okay. Anyway, so that's overwhelmingly positive.
Okay, tell us what that bill does again.
Okay. So we are facing the Hobbs decision right now. So we're waiting on the Supreme Court.
Right. The United States Supreme Court.
That's right. And the anticipation that it is very likely that in many different ways, the Roe versus Wade decision of 1973 will be overturned by this Hobbs decision.
Right.
As a result of that...
By the way, just stop real quick.
Yes, sir.
When do you expect to have any clue when that comes out?
Well, I think they're anticipating in the next couple of months. Okay. So the cycle of the Supreme Court...
Takes a while, doesn't it?
Right.
Right. Anyway, go ahead.
Especially with big legislation like this.
Oh, yeah.
They'll receive all the testimony, and then they actually go back and almost pull in the ladder after them, if you will, and they begin to really research and go really deep, and they have a bunch of brilliant people that work with each one of those Supreme Court justices.
Okay.
And they actually will sit around and debate back and forth and work on their opinion pieces so that when that's released, they have had bright minds for a long time working on this subject.
Okay.
And I like the idea.
Yeah.
So this right here anticipates that. If it goes the direction of overturning Roe versus Wade to any degree,
right,
what this will do is return Wyoming, from most intents, all the way back to where we were in 1973, which is in favor of protecting the baby.
Okay.
There was an amendment that was passed yesterday that actually gives exceptions for rape and incest. Some of that's very concerning. We had a wonderful lady that we flew out here to talk to the governor's office and also to a number of senators. She was a victim. Her mom was a victim of rape, and she was born as a result of that.
Yeah.
And what she's pointing out to people is that still is a baby,
still human
in the womb.
Here she is standing talking to you.
Exactly, a brilliant lady.
Powerful.
Yeah,
that's really powerful.
And so,
that's hard. And those are hard issues, no question. But I think we've talked about this before. Too many times. Just in any kind of politics, we take the extremes and then we make the whole policy around the extreme examples versus the whole. Most of every kind of, in this case, abortion is not one of those extremes.
Yes,
but those are difficult. I mean, acknowledging the fact that those are difficult to deal with for sure. But no, that's interesting to bring somebody in. That...
this is very positive news. If everything goes the way that this bill anticipates and everything else, this will, for most intents, return Wyoming to where she was before 1973.
Okay.
It would be sweeping legislation. And I think this would make us like the 16th state to be like this.
Okay, so that is really good news.
Yeah.
So let me And just as an addendum, this is kind of a side question. I don't know that it's on one of these bills, but remember we talked about there was a pill that whole
Yeah.
where did that one
That
land?
Abortifacience Bill, that's what that's
Yeah.
called. The Abortifacience Bill was essentially killed in a committee.
Okay.
This is one of the grave challenges that we have. The bills will make it a long way, and it will die for a couple of different reasons. Either it will be not be assigned to a committee or things
So
like
does
that.
that mean that we still have that pill and the people can still take and that's still legal and no one's going to challenge it
At this particular
at this
point.
time?
Right,
at
right.
this time. That's
Now,
right.
if with the passage of this particular bill, though, and the anticipation that the Supreme Court will do what everyone expects that it will do,
Yeah.
even that will be extremely curtailed.
Okay.
And so, yeah,
And I think the part of it that was always disturbing to me is that it's one thing, abortion is one thing, but then having taxpayers pay for that.
yes.
And I remember that pill was being paid for by taxpayer dollars. Could that be curtailed as well? I mean, obviously, if there's lower usage of it, but do our taxpayer dollars still pay for that? As
Well,
far as
I
you know?
just
That was back
read-
in the Obama era,
Right.
if I remember right.
I just read some wonderful news. There was some threat to what is called the Hyde Amendment.
Yeah, remember that?
And that has been basically overturned at the federal level.
Okay.
So I think we're still in that position where no taxpayer funding can go to support an industry like the abortion industry.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, thanks for that update. That's good to kind of clarify in my mind as well. The Women's and Fairness in Sports Act, where did that go?
Oh, this broke my heart. We worked so hard on it, and I was down there for hours, easily about 8 hours a day. I have been up until this morning. But this was a battle that was happening kind of late in the week last week. But the Speaker of the House did not let this bill out to go to a committee. And so it failed to meet a deadline to be reported out of committee. And so I went down there, spoke with him personally, spoke with many different people to try to see what can we do to get that out. We even tried a maneuver where some members of the House can call for that to be reassigned, can call it off of the Speaker's desk and
Right.
demand that it be assigned to a committee.
Yeah.
And there was a couple parliamentary tricks that were used right there, and they were told they couldn't do it at that particular day. So later on, they attempted another maneuver. And so all of that's just parliamentary hijinks. And just so trying to call shots and coach through all those different things, it was so frustrating.
I think most of us that live outside of that realm don't even know this is all happens. This
Right.
is how this all works.
In Wyoming. And this is where one of the challenges is. I talk to people from all over the nation who work in parliament or in parliamentary procedure and in legislatures all over the nation. And it is difficult, but once they finally see it, it is difficult to convey just how fast things move in Wyoming. When you have only 20 days
Yeah.
and 40 days the next year, things that happen in most places at a steadier pace, here it is a mad dash. It is a sprint.
So just on that, and I want to get back to this bill,
Yeah.
but do most states meet longer time? Or are they year round? Or I know we're just 20 days, or
Right.
maybe sometimes an extended session.
Well, yes. So some people, they meet year round. That's
Okay.
a full-time legislature.
Okay.
In many states where it's not full-time, what they'll do is they'll actually have gaps. So they'll meet for a little while,
Okay.
then allow for a break for basically testimony to happen and some other things. And then they'll meet together again, and then they'll break to allow for more
So
testimony. and
Wyoming
work.
really is unique.
It is
in this thing.
unique.
Okay, let's get back to this bill. So it did pass the Senate, if I remember right.
Overwhelmingly.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
They walked it
25.
across the other
Yeah.
side, and he just, you said you call it a pocket veto. He just
That's right.
basically left it in his desk, didn't even talk about it.
That's exactly right.
All right. Well,
So-
I just want you to know, you
Yeah.
sent out an email to everybody, say, hey, we need your input. I typed our Speaker of the House,
Yeah.
a nice little. I said it was nice. I said, please hear this bill. So
By the way, it was overwhelming.
didn't listen to me.
Well, my goodness. Just got to keep praying for it.
I guess so.
But what I like about it, I think that we had the opportunity to really press on this issue, and it is overwhelmingly popular. It's not a left or right or Democrat or Republican position. It literally is trying to just provide for girls to have a fair and level playing field so that they can earn scholarships and participate in sports.
So this would say, if
Yeah.
this bill would have passed, it would say no biological boys can participate in women's sports anywhere in Wyoming.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But as it is right now, biological boys can swim as in the female or whatever, compete against females.
They can, yes.
And compete for scholarships, compete in every way.
Right.
And so this won't be challenged again until next year. Is that how that works?
Right, but we're going to make a strong dash at it again. I've already talked to the prime sponsor and others, and she is so excited about this and believes in it so very strongly. Absolutely. And not only that, the response in the legislature was very, very positive. As you can see, from 25 out of 30 people in the Senate. And those numbers probably will just get stronger.
Really?
So it's a good thing.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things. It's like the natural consequence of the transgender movement. If you push it to its extreme, this is where the extreme is, right?
That's exactly
This is where
right.
when you push these ideas, you start off thinking, well, someone can identify as a different gender. Okay, that's one thing. But when you push it to this extreme, it's like now all of a sudden this is really putting a disadvantage to biological girls throughout our country.
Right.
Okay, so what is the national policy on this issue?
So the NCAA, I think it was last year, had a policy that they were going to allow biological males into female sports. But they started to realize how difficult that was. So what they did is they basically gave up on the subject altogether and just left it to individual sports in different jurisdictions. And so each state really has to make a decision on this. And one of the things that some have tried to say is, it's unfair toward individuals who consider themselves to be transsexual. But in reality, they still have the opportunity to play sports with other people of their own biological makeup.
Sure. And
so biological males still have the opportunity to compete with other biological males.
Right.
And so it isn't unfair to anyone. It actually gives everyone a fair and equal playing ground.
Yeah.
And that's something that's abundantly clear to most.
Does it surprise you just a little bit, though, that Wyoming, that this wouldn't just pass so easily? I'm just surprised that this didn't go. I wasn't surprised with the Senate. I mean, that was real overwhelmingly for this bill to be passed here, and then to have it die. I don't get it. I guess I'm trying to say.
This is why it's so difficult sometimes when you see this. This is why decisions made for leadership matter so much.
Oh, man.
If it had made it to the House floor, it would have passed, I believe, also overwhelmingly.
Really? Okay.
But what happened was there's just a few people who are in a position of leadership who do several things. What most people don't recognize with the Speaker of the House and the presidents of the Senate or the majority floor leaders, the kind of power that they hold.
Yeah.
Those individuals, specifically like the Speaker of the House, they first of all select all the chairmen.
Okay.
Then they will also select what committees different people go to.
Right. That's huge.
And so,
I've learned through you that is a big deal, because if it can't get out of that committee, it's never going to see the light of day. Of course.
Yeah. And so when you have a very strong conservative House of Representatives, the leadership in that House of Representatives actually can stymie the will of the entire body. And in a case like this, stymie the will of the entire Senate and House on legislation like this.
And it doesn't take too many votes to do that.
Exactly.
Isn't that interesting? That's it's kind of painful. It's just the way the system works. I understand that. But so then the way the system works too is that, come this fall, people are going to start, running for offices, and this is probably going to be one of those issues that people
yes, sir.
Right?
Well, we are going to make that abundantly clear to the world.
For sure.
That we need to stand up for our girls in Wyoming.
Yeah, for sure. Oh,
yes,
good
sir.
for you, man. Way to go. Well, I'm glad you're in the fight. Okay, so secondly, the Civics Transparency Act. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yes, sir. Well, okay, that also passed very strongly in the Senate and made it over to the House. And was placed, though, the committee that I was talking about last year, the House Education Committee, where we have two really wonderful people on that committee, but they're overwhelmed by the rest.
Okay.
Well, actually, so there's a lot of good bills that have died 7-2. This one died only 5-4.
Okay, so this is that same committee that we went into last year.
That's right,
trying
House
to
Ed.
promote, what I call vouchers. It was called something different, but that's this.
That same committee.
Same people on the committee.
That's right.
Interesting.
So those committees are made up for 2 years. So,
Gotcha.
of course, what we faced last year. Now, our prayer is that next year this will be a completely different committee because this election cycle is going to change things.
Yeah.
And
And so obviously your Family Policy Alliance will let us know who
Yes, sir.
should be voting for and who not because of things like this.
believe me, I will.
Yeah,
Yes,
for
sir.
sure. Yeah. And I think that's the one thing, Nathan, if there's one thing that's really positive in my view that's come out of this, I think, I think I'm relatively involved in our political, as I want to be a good citizen and be able to vote, understand the issues and
Right.
vote for people that, vote for issues that I care for. But, and I think that's even caused more people to be involved, but also I think you've also helped us get more depth to understand that, even down to school boards and down to, it's not just the Senate and the legislature,
sir.
it's the House. It's those local levels that really
Absolutely.
matters. And that's really changed in my thinking, I think.
I appreciate that very much because this is what I've tried to relay to many, many people. And by the way, this is why our friendship has been so wonderful, as we're able to talk to the world about making decisions in their own backyard first.
Yeah. Man,
Oftentimes we get really spun up about stuff that we really can't affect very much right now.
That is okay. You just talked.
Yeah.
You just put my face right beside that comment. I can get spun up about things that I have no control over, and then it be blind to some of the stuff that right here that we
right
can
here.
impact.
Yes, sir.
And so I am guilty as charged,
Well, no,
Senator, and I'm trying to change all that.
well, this is one of those things too, though. Just trying to remind people, hey, it's just like Nehemiah's wall. Let's start by building the wall in our own backyard first.
Yeah.
And as we all do that, it will connect and it will make a difference. And we can, it takes time too. Hey, this is something
Good.
I was sharing with someone else the other day. A lot of times people will think of these kind of things as, I don't know, a game where you win or lose and you walk away as a winner or loser.
Yeah.
In reality, I think of our efforts in politics as more like a gardener. You have to go out every day. And sometimes you'll find out that there's weeds in your garden. You got to go pull those weeds out, but you continue the process of growing. And it's something that it takes time to do.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. And by the way, we're still fairly new in Wyoming at all of this.
Yeah.
And we're getting up and going, and actually things are moving pretty well for being such a young organization.
I was wanting to dive into Ukraine, but we're going to do that in another podcast, okay?
Right.
Because I don't think we have enough time to do it right now. But I want to kind of camp a little bit on what you're saying there. At Family Policy Alliance, you've really made a huge impact of educating all of us, myself, in what goes on in our state and local levels. Tell us about, I mean, is your staff growing? Do you expand your staff?
Right.
I know you've talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
How's that all going?
Well, wonderfully. So we made a new development, a couple of new developments. We were able to put together just a couple of months ago to try to lead into this legislative session, a committee of individuals. It's a volunteer team that begins to work on different issues. And so we'll meet regularly in my office and then draw out on a whiteboard and start to talk about different issues and plan
Really
those out.
strategy.
Yeah.
Really strategizing. Wow.
And then the next step is we also hired our first contractor to help with some strategy.
Okay.
And have been working on that. And then as that's going to continue forward to help with planning out the next election cycle. And so all of those things are actually working really well together. And it's been exciting to watch
That's really amazing.
the effect we're having because of the team. So a lot of times I might be the guy you see at the legislature, but I have a bunch of different people helping to work behind the scenes on that.
It's good.
been wonderful.
It's good to know your team's growing, and hopefully your audience is growing. I do get feedback from people say, "Hey, I listen to your Nathan's podcast," and so I know people are listening. They care, and they're trying to get educated and understand how we're supposed to live in this. How now shall we live? And that's what we're trying to do. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will get to Ukraine because it's going to be our information will be 2 weeks old by the time we get there. But there's some really good information you've gleaned from this, and I've got a couple of observations from a biblical lens that I think will be interesting for people to look at. But in the meantime, as you live in this world, we have got to be strong and very courageous. God bless you all.